Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now I would like to present the material of poetry and language pedagogy. What is imagery in poetry? In poetry, imagery is a vivid and vibrant form of description that appeals to readers' sense and imagination. Despite the word's construction, imagery is not focused solely on visual representation or mental images. It refers to the full spectrum of sensory experiences, including internal emotions and psychical summation. How is imagery used in poetry? Imagery allows the reader to clearly see, touch, taste, smell, and hear what is happening, and in some cases even empathize with the with the mood of their subject. Whether it is the classical sonnets of Shakespeare or the searing social commentary from poets in the diaspora, like Langston Hughes, imagery beautifies and intensifies the poetic work. Seven types of imagery in poetry. There are seven main types of imagery in poetry. Poets create imagery by using figures of speech smile, a direct comparison between two things. Metaphor or a comparison between two unrelated things that share common characteristics. Personification, giving human attributes to non-human things, and onomatopoeia, a word that mimics the and then them. The function of the theme in poetry is to provide an overview or description of the poem that will be made, as well as the main things that the writer put once. What is a theme of poetry? A theme is a main idea or talk about something, one of which is in writing. The theme in poetry is the foundation or footing for the poet in develop his poetry. The first examples of in poetry, um, the themes in poetry can vary. The followings are example of themes. And then subject. The subject of the lyrics in poetry is the narrator in the poem. The poet is responsible for all the elements that exist his literary work, but in the literary work itself, it is the subject of the lyrics who speak and not the poet. Next, paraphrase. The meaning of paraphrase is a linguistic term which means restating an concept in another way in the same language, but without changing its meaning. Paraphrasing allows the author to give a slightly different recording from the original author. In literary works, changing poetry into prose or vice versa, changing drama into prose or vice versa. So essentially, paraphrasing is changing or diverting one form of language into content, meaning that paraphrasing also includes relating from a form of spoken language or language to written form. For example, a person is heard a story and then he tries to This part the story in the form of a discourse or essay. Of course, the use of a sentence and the choice of word is not the same as the original story because it is per using their own language, but the essence of the story has not changed. How to do paraphrase? The first, read the text that will be paraphrased to the end to get an overview of the contents of the reading or writing and find the key word of the text. Um, Second, develop course sentence and keywords into main ideas that are relevant to the reading topics. And then discussions. Definition of modern poetry. Modern poetry is free poetry, which has no many rules. Also, poetry is a literary work of sentiment writing by the poet to convey a message using an element of beauty in its temple. Poetry is made as beautiful as it can be enjoyed by both its reader and its author. For a writer, poetry is a part they lives in education. In additions, poetry is one of the oldest forms of literary art. Preliterate societies use rhythm first as a method to make stories and passages of history easier to remember. These verse were passed from our generation or to the next as oral narratives. Some of these were eventually write down and have survived to this day. American poet Walt Whitman, who published his influential book Leaves of Grace, is one of the founders of modern poetry. Modern poetry has discarded from traditional rhythm and matter, led him to be called the father or free verse, and made him an influence on the right. Here are the difference of modern poetry and old poetry. Modern poem. Modern poets began to play around with those patterns until different forms emerged and that led to blank and free verse. While old style poems were highly structured and format according to particular rules, that is they followed predetermined patterns of rhythm and scale. Old poems traditional poetry is also known as oral. Next, I would like to reading the poetry. The title is Now I Become Myself. Now I become myself is taken. Time, many years and place. I have been dissolved and shaken. Worn other people's face, run madly as if time were there. Terrible old, crying a warning. Hurry, you will be dead before. What, before you're reaching the morning? All the end of the poem is clear, or love safe in the walled city. Now to stand still, to be here, feel my unwake and density. The black shadow on the paper is my hand, the shadows of a word. A stroke shapes the shaper, falls heavy on the page, is hard. All fears now falls into place. From wish to action, word to silence, my work, my love, my time, my face, gathered into one intense gesture of growing like a plant, as slowly as repeating fruit, fertile, dictates and always bend, falls but doesn't exhaust the root. So all the poem is can give, grows in me to become the song, made so on root but love. Now there is time, and time is young. In this single hour I live, all of myself and do not move. I pursued who madly run, stand still, and stop the sun. Thank you. That's all from me. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.